Today is Wednesday, the 11th of October, 2017. It is block height 489,407. It's another episode, Block Digest. How you all doing? Guys, Shinobi, everybody, talk to me.
Woo!
Woo!
Making it.
Rick.
Doing good. Doing good.
Rick. And Aknix.
Oh, what's up, guys?
Yeah. And I've got Sharneen with me.
Hello.
Hello. And yeah, still here in Berlin. Tomorrow we're going to be going to the Monero meetup. Is that right? Room 77. That's where it's at. I love Room 77. You can actually buy really good food there. You can buy drinks and bars. It's like open till like 4 in the morning at weekends. And you can pay in Bitcoin. And I did a Segwit transaction the other day to pay for like, you know, a really nice meal and stuff. And it's just like, gosh, you know, if you got a couple of Lambos stuck on a few paper wallets, you could probably just spend the rest of your life living in Berlin, going to Room 77 every day and just dining out. Possibly. All right, down to some serious business then. So Putin 2 days in a row, Rick. How do you feel about that?
Well, you know, I love these Putin stories, and you know, I get to mess around with Putin as an image. That's always fun. But I really like the fact that this came from the Kremlin. Like, it's nice to get some news straight from the horse's mouth. And you know, it looks like there's a couple of things in here that are really interesting as far as just his statement. One of the things that I noticed was he was saying, if the system breaks, or as is trendy to say today, if there is a bubble, there will be no entity legally responsible for that. Which, you know, like, I just feel like that's basically the system that, you know, there's a two-tier system right now where there's a lot of people that do have security from that, and most of us don't. And that's why I enjoy Bitcoin. Is, you know, we're all participating in that.
Yeah, so this actually feels a bit like a reaction to yesterday's news. Russia, in quotes, bans Bitcoin. And this now seems like we're qualifying that statement now. Is that right? He's actually saying that, you know, we should probably pay attention to a lot of the innovations. So Reddit, not always the best source of information, but when it is, we do like to feature it on this show. And we had a nice summary here by Bill Rollo, who's only been a Redditor for 4 weeks, it should be pointed out. But nevertheless, here is a list, basically, that comes from this article. Crypto has serious risks because it's unregulated. It can be used for money laundering, used for tax evasion, used for fraud, used for arms and trafficking. It's a pyramid scheme. You actually did mention that, right? The pyramid scheme was used. It's like a Dutch tulip mania. It's basically a bubble. And I actually felt like this thread, and again, all in the links are all in the description below. You can follow along. I felt like, you know, had some interesting kind of to and fro in terms of like the fact that Bitcoin can be used for tax evasion because states can no longer see what you're earning and where it's coming from. And a couple of people even mentioned, let me keep scrolling down here because there were a few arguments between sort of more anarchist people, and then you had some liberals coming in, and they were talking about voluntary taxation and the inefficiencies in the current system. A lot of points being made about the fact that, you know, just because you're saying that that taxation should be voluntary doesn't mean you don't want to pay for schools and roads and infrastructure. It just means that you don't want these people handling it. And I felt like there was, you know, a really kind of good exchange here. I don't know, Shinobi, if you had a chance to go through any of this discussion.
No, actually, I hadn't. I just read the translation of Putin's statements directly.
Yeah, I did like him. I was trying to find the quote that I found earlier. Maybe I'll find it a bit later on. But yeah, I think that today's show is really about the way the nation state reacts to Bitcoin, because we also have another story in addition to this of various nation states reacting to it. If you're just a small island, or if you're just a small enclave and you don't have any natural resources, the main way that you make money is by competing with other nation states in terms of taxation. So maybe you have a flat tax, $10,000, and then they leave you alone. You come in, maybe you buy some bonds, some government bonds, like, you know, $500,000 worth of government bonds. You agree to stay in the country for 6 months and 1 day a year. which often doesn't, those types of things don't get enforced rigorously, but it's just, you have to make a declaration to say that you will, and that you are essentially a globalist. Like, you're going to be moving around, and you're going to be peripatetic is the term that's used in tax law oftentimes. Peripatetic means that you travel a lot. And Bitcoin just gives you that fluidity, but it also makes it harder for nation states to see what you're earning. But what this means, I remember now, the point that was being brought up is that the harder it gets for nation states to tax people based on capital gains, the more they push it into regressive forms of taxation, such as sales tax and VAT. So what the states will do is they'll just say, okay, then we'll just put all the taxation into the monetary flow. Right, so when you spend the money, when you earn the money from your employer, it gets taxed at source. More and more people now are becoming self-employed. That's a problem, because more and more people are self-declaring, right? Because it's not automated. So the concern was that the more individuals become self-sovereign and hide that capital from the state, the more the state is going to push for aggressive tax measures like sales tax, which is argued by the left oftentimes is punishing the poor, because the poor can't necessarily afford to pay like 20% on top of their shopping, whereas wealthy people can. It's no brainer for them. So any thoughts on the tax issue, the way Russia has responded today?
I was going to mention one other thing about what Putin said there. He also said, in his statement, that cryptocurrencies are issued by an unrestricted circle of anonymous entities. And we know that he met with Vitalik recently. And I know that he probably discussed the foundation. And I don't know, it just kind of makes me wonder what's going to happen down the road whenever some things come out. It's like, what's this definition now? And how are we going to actually phrase it? And so, yeah, it's just great that, I was also like, when I saw this story, I was like so excited because I did that artwork yesterday where it's like the mistranslation was the problem. And it's like, okay, I'm kind of feel justified with that artwork now.
I think another theme is emerging too. I think I'm starting to see these nation states maybe kind of examining the technology, or even examining Bitcoin itself as a potential way to capture and rebuild infrastructure in the end. Like, maybe this group is that voluntary. Maybe they will just contribute right back into infrastructure and getting stuff that needs to be done, built, and executed on. And in the process, what kind of effect does that have on our existing fiat currency for XYZ country, right?
Right. So what if spontaneously, without prompt, a lot of schools, hospitals, I don't know, sewage works, what if some of these entities, because they're all businesses, that's all a state really is. A state is a business, an industry. And you have these various departments, but they're really just, sub-brands like the NHS in England. The NHS is a brand. And there are various companies and holding companies. Limited companies were originally invented by the British government. I believe it was to help with the building of bridges and railways back in like the 1800s, something like that. And it was because the government lacked the core competence themselves to execute and deliver, this construction. So they outsourced it. But how can you incentivize ordinary private citizens to go about the task of building bridges and railways and infrastructure? Well, you incentivize them by giving them limited liability company, a limited company. You allow them to set up a legal personhood in the limited company that will recognize the state as a person. It can sue people, it can be sued, it can be a director of a company, you can have sub companies and so forth, subsidiaries. And what it does is it gives the entrepreneur the ability to put in capital into that company and never risk more than the sum of that capital, right? You can have shares, and all you ever risk in a limited company, in theory, as long as you don't commit any, crimes or anything, then you will only, your risk will be limited to the amount that you invest. And if it all goes wrong, you can just sunset the company, you can shut it down, wind it down, set up another one. So that was the incentive. And now I wonder what would happen if lots of these government-controlled companies all started crowdfunding, if they all just started soliciting funds directly from the citizenry rather than taking it from central government through taxation.
Yeah, you
Well, I
know, it
mean,
kind of
I
lets
think
that,
that's a,
it kind of
yeah, I
lets the
think that's a
libertarian side maybe fulfill, you know, this big question that a lot of parts of government have been asking, like, can this be done? Like, who builds the roads? Who does this type of thing? And, you know, maybe you can even isolate the experiment and kind of leave it Bitcoin only for funding those types of things, and actually gauge and do metrics on like what's the voluntary economy doing versus like the traditional fiat economy, for example.
Right. Shinobi?
well, I was going to say this kind of really just brings into question the entire just nature of how taxes work on just a more abstract model. Because like you were just saying, we have like these types of corporate models that have varying degrees of influence or connection to governments. But then we're also seeing a big uptick in like self-employment and people actually like earning their own revenue in a more like kind of fly-by-night way. And I really think it's going to be kind of a pulling from both ends of that, with it most likely being an easier target for those big companies as far as tax revenue goes. And like I think you're going to have an incentive there where anybody who can get away with kind of being self-employed or building more agile like companies can kind of skirt away from those tax regulations a lot easier than these big companies. Those big companies kind of are going to be providing the services that are really difficult to provide as a smaller, more nimble entity. And I think that's really, in a weird way, possibly going to kind of push things in a more socialist direction, because those are naturally going to not have as easy of a time just getting away from those tax obligations. And maybe that's an incentive for governments to really put their fingers deeper into that pie and try to have more of a direct control, because that's their only tax base, and they're going to want to make sure that the moves that they can to get out of those jurisdictions and try to escape those tax obligations. So in a way, you might see at the lower scale things move in a more libertarian direction for the individual, but then on a larger corporate scale move in a much more socialist direction.
Yeah, I feel that as well, like moving away to more and more extremes, a little bit like it is on our Bitcoin right now.
Mm-hmm.
Each side just stamps louder and louder, and each side gets further and further apart as the discourse continues. Well, let's all just take a vacation. I want to take us all to the South Pacific right now. Let's get it up. Screen share. All right, here we go. So 42 Bitcoins will get you this. You ready? Zooming in. I'm going to take you to the South Pacific island of Vanuatu. Here it is. What do you think? And for 42 Bitcoins right now, at current prices, you can basically get citizenship here. And you can add family members. I think it's like $10,000 per extra family member. And this is what you get. What do you think?
Wow.
I think if I had some extra Bitcoins, I'd be building a resort right now.
Dude, look at this. Check it out, right? So this is like a promo video for it. I found on YouTube. And it's just so idyllic. Like, and not very many people live there. Like, it's a lot of it is just, you know, natural inhabitants that have been there for many, many years. It's not really a very big touristy spot. You obviously you can take holidays there. It's not too far from New Zealand and Australia, but it looks very untouched, you know. And I think it's been announced today that I'll just close this down. It's basically saying that earlier this week, Vanuatu became the first sovereign nation to accept Bitcoins in return for granting citizenship through its DSP citizenship program. And yeah, it goes down and it describes it all. And again, I think this is, you know, jurisdictional, you know, arbitrage. It basically gives you access to a visa-free travel because it's part of the Commonwealth. It used to be it's actually a British Commonwealth nation, but I believe France and Britain both laid claim to it in the past. But it gives you access, visa-free travel to 25 countries, including the UK, the whole of Europe, Russia, Hong Kong, and Singapore. This ranks the passport 45th in terms of the travel freedom, according to the Henley Visa Restriction Index. Highly recommend you go look that up, guys. So yeah, I mean, I know a lot of journalists I used to work with in the past. They used to try and get, you know, all the passports they could. They'd go back through their family tree. They'd see if they could find like an old grandfather that was Irish, and they would try and get the Irish passport, because the Irish passport gives you access to a whole bunch of countries and for diplomatic reasons. But you tempted? Anyone tempted? 42 Bitcoins?
I'll tell you what, you know, I was, until I started looking into the area, the Ring of Fire. You know, I mean, these guys, they went through some pretty harsh times, and we were talking about, can you build up infrastructure with a group like this? And this is what they're trying to do. They just went through some volcano eruptions, a cyclone, some earthquakes. And, you know, I mean, it's a great way. They're doing the global, you know, competitor thing with offering no taxes basically at all. So you can go down there and start up a business, and, you know, hopefully they could start building their infrastructure back. And one other thing I noticed that was interesting was all this Bitcoin that you're going to be sending was actually going to be going through an unnamed Australian exchange that covers, you know, KYC, AML information, and goes through their regulations. And I think that's just interesting with Australia and Japan seeing more and more of this. It's just like, when are we going to see more U.S. adoption? We have the legislation on the books. Let's pass it, people.
One thing I noticed was that you don't actually have to physically go to the country after acquiring the citizenship, so you can get some of those benefits without the geographic risk, if you catch my drift.
Yeah, but I mean, who wouldn't want to go down and actually live there? I mean, come on.
Yeah, you don't get residency for this deal, I don't think. It's just a passport they're giving out. So, Janine, did you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I just thought as a related note, I think, have we brought up about what happened with the Silk Road auction coins? Because people have been talking about that a lot lately, how it was a really stupid decision for the U.S. government to auction them off because of the price increase, they'd be a lot more valuable now. And so I'm kind of wondering if that factored into the decision of Vanuatu, where they're like, oh, if we get Bitcoins now, if the price keeps going up, then we're going to get rich and we're not going to make the same decision the U.S. government made.
Are they going to stockpile these Bitcoins, or did you say they're going to the Australian exchange? They're just going to sell it?
Yeah, it looks like they're going to transfer the value to fiat, like right at the point of sale, like at the time of sale. So I guess it's, you know, they're going to be trying to accumulate money, but I don't know how much, whether they're going to be accumulating the Bitcoin, where that's actually going. You know, I mean, it could be directed back through somewhere and they trade in back doors or something, who knows? But I mean, hopefully it'll help them get their income they need to start up a legit nation. I mean, like, they're a legit nation. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they're not taking at least some Bitcoin, they're wrecked.
Yeah, I think this would be very attractive for a lot of US Bitcoiners. If any of you got in early on Bitcoin, you know, maybe you're going to wait until it's like $10,000. You can like renounce your US citizenship for what, $4,000 to $6,000 now. Is that right, Shanine? And you don't have to pay the IRS anymore. You can basically go to Vanuatu. You can get the passport. You're a part of the British. You'll basically be like me. You'll be a subject of the British Empire and Her Majesty. And you'll just be able to, you know, have your ticket, go around Europe, go to Singapore, hang out. You know, you'll be free. You won't have to pay the IRS anymore. You won't be part of Rome, the Roman Empire.
I'm just wondering if I'll still get my Trump feed, you know, because we get that just regularly here.
Yeah. All right. I want to give a shout out to Beauty Bubble in the chat. Welcome back. Been missing you. We've returned three episodes now. On our third one, and Beauty Bubble posted this. Portland anarchists are fixing potholes on the city streets. Who's going to build my roads?
See, there we go. The narrative continues.
I mean, who the fuck do you think built the roads? Guys, come on, like some magical government, like fairy? What just came along is let there be roads? Like, people build roads.
What, you're building roads without the government? Minimum 5-year sentence.
Oh my God, I can't believe it.
And actually the contractors, a lot of the times the contractors that the government hires to build the roads, what they end up doing is the government actually sometimes gives them the supplies or sells them the supplies at a really cheap price to build or fix the roads. And then those companies, the contractors, go on and sell the supplies for a higher price to a different company or someone else. So they're not very good at it.
Yeah, they're terrible at procurement. You know, if it was a company, the buyer, you have a position called the buyer, right, who does procurement for the company. And why is it that all government entities suck when it comes to negotiating the purchasing of, you know, purchase agreements? Can somebody?
I think it's because
subcontracting how they do that with like almost all infrastructure projects everywhere I've ever seen.
Every private company, I've been freelance nearly my whole life, my adult life. I had one job briefly working in a shop as an employee, but after that, all self-employed. And nearly every client I had would have a strict procurement process where they would get, you know, at least 3 quotes from other competing, you know, freelancers or companies doing the same thing. And you would have to put in a purchase order. And then if they agreed, you won the bid, you would get a sales order, and it would all be like really locked down. And then whenever I did anything for the government, it was just all like nepotistic. You know, this guy went to college with that guy and he works at the council. And so now he's giving him the gig, and it's just so corrupt. Like,
I was in the army, you know, and there was a common phrase there that the bidder was always the lowest common bidder. He was somebody who was the lowest guy. He came in at the lowest rate. And I'm sure that's why, you know, we see a lot of bad infrastructure deals. And you know what's interesting is, like, we're joking around about, oh, somebody's fixing the street, arrest him. That picture, that guy's wearing a mask, and I doubt it's because it's super cold. I really think it's because there has been cases where somebody was fixing a pothole and they were arrested for it. And so, you know, that's just, I think that's probably why he's wearing the mask, is so that somebody didn't snap a picture and he gets arrested for fixing a street.
Just repeat that for me. You're telling me that people can be arrested for fixing things?
Well, I've seen an article. I've read an article where it's like, you know, it's a government, that's a government road, and you're fiddling with it. You know, you're fixing it. You know, you're making it better, but you're fiddling with it, and so they can arrest you on it. And I've seen, some articles about one guy who did that and he got charged.
Jeez.
I can confirm that.
And Shani?
Crazy.
Yeah, there was a story there. I can't remember which state it was in. It might have been Arizona. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, it was one of the U.S. states. There was a story I saw about, I think it was like some steps by a library that were broken in this like local town. And this guy came along, and because it was a big problem because a lot of elderly people were going to the library, and then when they were going to the parking lot, they would go down these steps and they would fall because they were really, I don't know if they were broken or just poorly made. But anyway, this guy came along. Actually, no, there weren't stairs. It was just a dirt pathway at first, and people were slipping down that. So he decided to come along, and he actually built some stairs there all by himself, self-funded. I think it cost him $700. And he just built some, you know, really basic stairs with a railing and everything so that people wouldn't be sliding down this dirt path when they went to the parking lot. And then the local government comes along and says, no, they tried to basically put him in jail for building the steps because, like, you didn't get planning permission for this. We don't know if the steps were built correctly. And everyone in the town is annoyed because it's like, no, he did a good job. But here's the best part. So the government was saying that they were going to take down his steps and rebuild their own. And it was going to cost them over $100,000 to build some steps down this hill. It was so ridiculous.
That's what it's like when they get involved.
All right. So from one large bureaucratic entity to another, let's talk about the cost of storing the Ethereum blockchain. And Jameson Lott posted, turns out if you have less than 1 terabyte of disk, less than 2,000 IOPS, or less than 4 CPUs, you're going to have a bad time. And this was a retweet actually of another tweet of his. After a month-long struggle, BitGo's archival parity nodes are upgraded. Good timing too, since it turns out there's a hard fork. So the hard fork that's impending is Byzantium. And in the description below, we have done all the work for you in case you're just on the outside of this and you're not paying too much attention to it. But if you're one of these Ethereum fans, here we have a really good post from Mohammed, who has put up a basic list of all of the improvements that are coming, the Ethereum improvement proposals. If you want to see a full list of those, we've also got a link for you to the EIPs. And here you can see the Byzantium hard fork is coming. And here are the list of improvements. So any of you have a glance at this? What do you think about the 1 terabyte though? It's a lot of disk.
Oh my God, it's incredible. I think he's under exaggerating with the 4 CPUs and 2000 IOPS, because if you're gonna have a bad time doubling that still, it's just like, talk about chain bloat. I never even imagined it'd be this much, to be honest.
Yeah, the ICO season has been bloating that chain for sure. And, I know that these airdrops are coming in for Bitcoin, and I've heard that, there's some other coins like Ethereum and Litecoin where we might start seeing these things happen to some more. So I don't know, we'll see.
See, one thing I saw with that, I'd kind of like to hear your opinion on this, Aknex. You probably have a much better grasp of it than me. But it looked like one of the things they were doing is outsourcing some of the actual computer operations or CPU operations from the Ethereum virtual machine directly into the node host's computer's CPU. That really has me going, because like one of the things that kind of gets said here and there periodically, and has been for a few years, is when is the exploit coming out of the EVM and actually let somebody write a contract on the Ethereum network that can actually escape that sandbox and start doing things on the host outside of the confines of the virtual machine. And I really am wondering, with them kind of outsourcing some of the cryptographic operations directly to the CPU outside of the EVM, like are they kind of setting themselves up for that now? Are we going to see that sometime soon?
I can't argue that. I mean, I've been kind of thinking that something like this was eventually gonna, it's inevitable almost with the architecture. So like you just saying that, it's like we're just getting steps and steps closer to the inevitable, I think. But it's one developer screws up or something like that, and it's just so easy to miss it. It could be a complete honest mistake, and people are losing money. So it's one of these things where people just got to keep their eye on it, especially with a hard fork looming, right? Because you have all this extra code being tossed around, and peer review is through the roof. So yeah, it's something it's definitely on my radar.
Okay, and what do you guys think about the reduction in the mining reward? So they're going to reduce them from 5 ETH to 3 ETH for each block. And obviously this, by the way, proof of stake, the Casper thing is not incoming right now. It's been put off. I think it's going to be a bit controversial and incredibly technically difficult to implement. But he's saying that the previous plan to exponentially increase block times, the Ice Age, has been delayed. The Ice Age was originally put in place to incentivize the adoption of old chains when hard forks are introduced.
So does this mean that Ethereum has actually finally released their economic policy, or have they not done that yet still?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, I guess the speculation would be that the price is going to go up because it'll be scarce. So it's like a halvening event, not quite a halvening, almost halvening. And they also have the ZK snarks as well being implemented as a privacy feature. Faster transaction process by removing a dependency that basically allows you to, you have to put in the state tree roots on each transaction. That's going to be optional now. There are also some smart contract improvements which help the developers to debug their code. And yeah, as I say, you can see the rest of everything and sundry in the link in the description to the Git repo. But I'm just watching this from a distance, really. I'm not too into Ethereum. I still think that it's a solution, looking for a problem, and all they've really managed to produce so far is these kind of pyramidal, like ICO wave scams.
I just think that it's a huge change, like 5 Ethereum to 3 Ethereum. Like, wow. And like, what's the economic rationale behind that? I'm sure there's a blog post somewhere, but
there was a link linked off to the other proposal, which is Ice Age, and it just feels like I'm dealing with a government. I wouldn't want to be a big holder of Ethereum. I'd be so worried about what policies they were going to be putting in.
Right. I was just like wondering, like, how is that just an arbitrary thing? Like, going from 5 to 3, it wasn't like a math equation with Bitcoin where there was a set time that this was going to happen, and so the market got to kind of price this in. And I mean, it's definitely feels like a government move, like just arbitrarily putting that in.
I mean, I've been asking around. No one is anticipating a hard fork, like a contentious split and a creation of another Ethereum token. I will need to read this Ice Age thing. I will confess that I haven't been super focused on Ethereum of late, just because I really don't like it much.
Right. It's like the whole time we've been thinking like, okay, there's no reason to pay attention to this, but now it's bloated to an area where it's like, okay, well, now we've got to start investigating. And now I'm seeing things like this. It's like, okay, I didn't know that they didn't really have an economic policy in place, because it was, I mean, it seems like that's pretty essential for this market.
It just feels like they're making this shit up as they go along. That's how I think of it. Like, talk about, the plane, building the plane on the way down, they really are. And they're playing with fire. Like,
they're clicking that champagne glasses like that fork, they're just like, oh yeah, it's
like
going good.
Fall out the sky, and they're just like, drinking their champagne, thinking, yeah, this is great. Oh, we'll fix that later. Don't worry about the wings. Yeah.
Oh, that's even better than the burning in the house, man.
Yeah. All right. So from one crappy project onto the next, we've got a 2x update. I just thought I'd keep the pulse going on this project. So apparently SegWit2x could be, I love this quote, could be BT 0.02x by November. Am I the only one that sees these future markets as the best thing to fight contentious forks? That's Cryptophiliac on Twitter. It's again, it's all links below. And this is the update. Shinobi, can you talk about this? There were some updates to some of the markdown files, the readmes.
Well, obviously, Garza rebased everything recently from 0.15, and that left everything named Bitcoin Core again. So obviously he had to go back in and fix that and make sure that it was crystal clear that this is BTC1 Core, not Bitcoin Core. And that's about the gist of it. That's how Jeff Garzik is spending his time while this giant shit show is continuing to unfold.
And that's a nice altcoin they got there.
That is a great altcoin. I was trying to find a tweet that I made ages ago where I installed it on a Raspberry Pi just to see what it was like. And Bitcoin Core was everywhere. It was like copyright Bitcoin Core developers, 2017. It had the link to the GitHub Bitcoin Git repo, the wrong repo. It was just like, God, was this just a really dodgy copy paste job? I really hope you put more effort. How long would it take you to do a find and replace, really? But apparently not. So, okay. So yeah, the drama continues. And then we also have this warning on bitcoin.org, which, as Luke Deshear pointed out, is just, a website run by a group of individuals. They don't necessarily represent everything Bitcoin, but they are warning users that there will be, some incompatibilities in the Bitcoin economy with businesses, prominent businesses such as Coinbase, Xapo, BitPay, who have signed an agreement to adopt and implement a contentious hard fork sometime in November. Hard fork is backwards incompatible changes to the Bitcoin network. The hard fork is not supported by the majority of the Bitcoin users, allegedly. And I've seen the Twitter polls. I think those Twitter polls are somewhat interesting signals. I do think they're quite easy to game. I don't think they have been gamed in this case. It's too easy to shout AstroTurf. But a lot of these, the way they're doing the Twitter polls now is they're actually asking people to put the word yes or no in a reply rather than voting, because those votings are so trivially gained. There are numerous companies on the web that will, you give them $100 and they'll give you like 1,000 votes. So it's just not an interesting signal. But I don't know many people that are saying yes to X. Do you? I mean, apart from these businesses that have signed
James
this agreement.
Bond.
James Bond is yes to X. That is true. But apart from James Bond, I don't know of anyone.
Even
I can't say I know anybody.
They're doing yes and no because they're also
yeah. Even the businesses, Johnny. So even the businesses pulling out. Like, this feels very weird to me. This whole hard fork thing feels very unnatural. It feels very political. It feels very staged. It feels like they're just kind of pushing this forward to put pressure on core, and it's really not working, and everyone can kind of see it's not working. And earlier on, we were having a really good discussion in the Bitcoin Mumble chat about the philosophy of this, and about the fact that when people talk about the block size debate, they're essentially having two conversations. They're talking ostensibly about how we should increase the block size, or whether or not we should increase the block size. But you're also fundamentally, you're talking about how we should implement improvements to Bitcoin in the future. How do those decisions get made? What happens when the community disagrees? What is the mechanism in the future for implementing technical changes? And what do you do when contentiousness emerges and you end up with possibly having two forks? Like, there has to be an extraneous mechanism, extraneous to the protocol itself. There has to be some kind of market, maybe like Bitfinex has done with the chain split tokens. There has to be some method by which users in the past who are perhaps lagging and have some old software have an opportunity to form a valid, strong opinion based on rich information as to whether or not they want to upgrade to this particular chain or that particular chain.
Yeah, just going back to that conversation, one of the big things we were going back to was like this thing that got me into Bitcoin was to solve the Byzantine generals problem, and how it feels like, this is really kind of not fixing that problem. It's actually putting you back into the problem by sort of creating somebody that you're going to go to, a higher power that you're going to look forward to. And, also like just the contention in it. It's like one of the things that really bugs me is that it's within the companies, I mean, like, we're polling, the users and everything, but I've heard just from within the companies, that's not all the employees agree with this. And, so yeah, it's a lot of contention in there. And, I really enjoyed that conversation, and hopefully more people could come in there and talk about this sort of things.
Yeah, we do have good chats, guys, in the chat room during the day. If you want to join us, the link is there right at the top of the description. I don't know if you want me to repeat what I said, but we can always have that conversation later. Shinobi, what are you up for? You into this?
Way too many consecutive hours.
Yeah, okay. We'll do it another time then. We'll do it another time. But it's definitely a conversation that we should have at some point. Anyone else have any final thoughts on the 2x update? Nope. All right, let's move on. Shanine, tell us about Pirate Bay.
Yes. So I don't think we covered this story the first time it made the rounds about a month ago, but probably a lot of you have heard that Pirate Bay was suspected of running a JavaScript Monero miner in the browser whenever you visited their website. And basically all it is really is an ad script, but it uses CPU power to mine Monero. And according to Torrent Freak, apparently Pirate Bay has said that they wanted to test this out as an alternative source of revenue instead of actual advertising. And Torrent Freak also says it's possible that Pirate Bay is not actually running the script, but it's one of the Pirate Bay advertisers. We don't really know, but since Pirate Bay has acknowledged that they were doing it in the past, it probably is them again, and they just haven't said anything. And I don't really know how long it's going to last. I don't think they ever said why they stopped it and why they started it now. But I mean, personally, as a user, the experience, like just the fact that they're not using ads anymore, but they're still using a CPU powered miner is still very annoying, especially when you can't opt out of it. Because one of the biggest problems with ads isn't the fact that you get these annoying pictures popping up. It's the fact that to generate web pages, it now takes so much more CPU power because you have to load all the third-party domains that it's connecting to and all the pictures and everything. Like, that's a lot of extra stuff that you have to load in addition to the web pages, which are also getting a lot bigger. Like, it's almost impossible these days to find a web page that's 1 megabyte in size or less. So one of the ways that you obviously can prevent this miner from running is if you have an ad blocker installed. Most popular ad blockers like uBlock Origin will actually stop this thing from working. So if you don't want it to be running when you go to Pirate Bay, if you're a Pirate Bay regular, then, you know, turn on the ad blocker and it shouldn't work anymore. One of the reasons why Pirate Bay will probably stop using it and why they've probably not advertised that they've turned it on again is because Cloudflare, which provides DDoS protection service, they have actually been denying their services to websites that are running this Monero miner because Pirate Bay has apparently inspired other websites to try it out. And so Cloudflare has been saying, nope, if you use this, we're not going to provide services anymore. And the reason is not because they're against Monero or cryptocurrencies or anything like that. It's just that a lot of these sites that are enabling it, they're not informing their users that they're doing it. And so Cloudflare is saying that they will interpret the mining script as malware. So that's why they're denying the service. So Pirate Bay is basically going to have to decide whether they want to continue with this experiment, if they're going to inform their users about it and keep doing it, or shut it off because they're worried about losing their DDoS protection service.
What do you guys think?
I think I'm gonna, you know, try and stay away. I've always stayed away from Pirate Bay, but I really feel like these, you know, CPU miners in browsers are just sort of popping up everywhere. It's like, I mean, this whole idea of going around this for ad revenue and everything, going around this to avoid the ads, like, it seems to be the new thing and people are testing it out. But like Janine's saying, you know, it's really aggravating because it slows you down so much, even though the normal process does. I'm sure this kind of slows you down even more. And yeah, hopefully, you know, these people will just start telling their users that it's happening so they can sort of decide to opt in or opt out.
I feel like a lot of people just aren't even asking the right questions. Like, how can we make this work? Like, think about it. Like, how about just the Pirate Bay puts a Monero miner button on their website? You know, if you're the type of person who has an idle CPU and you're just downloading movies, click the miner, contribute your CPU power to Pirate Bay, you know, like, earn some money for them. Like, you know, like, they're providing a service, like, there's an acknowledgement, so that there might be a lot of take on that side. That's the way I look at it. It's actually something I know I would do. You know what I mean? Like, if I viewed a website and I wasn't doing anything with my laptop, it's sitting there, you know, I happen to have free electricity. So someone like me especially doesn't care. I might just...
Yeah, you're right. Making it opt-in makes absolute sense. It's just the fact that they're not telling people that I think is the most sort of insidious thing. Let's stay on the topic of hacks. So Aknix, you pointed this out as we were coming on air about this hack, ad fraud with the Pornhub website. Is that right?
Yeah, we actually had another user from the Mumble drop this in there, and I thought it was interesting. So it's another advertisement, leveraging the advertisement network, and Pornhub has just been inundated. So basically all these users going to Pornhub have been got by this kind of obtuse malware. So it launches another window or whatever, and then inside it's like, you know, click on this security critical Chrome update, and it beat a lot of people over the head. A lot of people got malware installed, it looks like. 10,000 users or so. So it's just another instance of this stuff being super pervasive. You know, you could end up with a coin miner on there, or, you know, something that's just monitoring your info, turn on your webcam. Who knows, you know?
Right. And they're pointing out here in this article, Pornhub has an Alexa ranking of 21, or in the world, 38. World ranking, and US ranking is 21. And yeah, that's a lot of eyeballs. That's a lot of people. and basically it gives them something to install. Is that right? And they just click yes. And someone was mentioning,
Yep, it's pretty much any type of payload.
Yeah, it's HTTPS. Yeah, it's HTTPS. Charlene is asking. But yeah, you're giving people a question like, do you want to install this? And they just click yes. And someone mentioned in the chat, like it could say, you know, you're about to get cucked, and they'd still click yes because they don't read the messages when those prompts come up.
Yep.
Oh my God, that's pretty sad.
Because actually I once did a project where I tried to make a list of like the most popular websites that most of them were on the Alexa, that the most popular websites that didn't use HTTPS, and a lot of the websites at the top of Alexa are porn sites, obviously, and a lot of them didn't use HTTPS, and it's like, wow, that's really bad.
Yeah.
You people are idiots.
Don't have unprotected porn, you know, on your computer. That's really not good.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah. All right. Any other discussion points on this? James Bond says that he watches Buckache all day long, so he loves.
That's disgusting.
No, it's not.
You're sick, man.
It's just a matter of taste, dude. Come on. This is how you get STDs, kids, not using HTTPS and clicking on stupid command prompts.
Infection.
No, you watch Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah. All right. Fake news. It's time for fake news. Dubai's land department adopts blockchain technology, and apparently Dubai is putting, I don't know, land registration on the blockchain. Did they think they were still writing articles for like 2014? Because this is the kind of bullshit that was coming out years ago. We're going to put medical records on the blockchain. We're going to put land registration on the blockchain.
I mean, from what I understand, Chris, we already blockchained all the things like 2 years ago.
We did, didn't we? I thought we put all the land on the blockchain already. I thought we did that already.
See, this really kind of caught me off guard, because it initially started discussing a program where eventually they could build off of land title registries and to like ID programs, where people could actually like automate utility payments, all without having to deal with a centralized entity or government agency. But then they go on to say that a government agency is going to be in charge of validating everybody's identification information before it's actually put into this blockchain platform. And this made me think, I don't want to use his name because I'm not sure how he would feel about it, but there was a community member over at Whalepool from Dubai that actually worked in a government agency doing a lot of this blockchain stuff for them. And the way that he described the situation there is pretty much people like the Ethereum Foundation and a lot of Westerners pretty much swooping in and just selling the government just pie in the sky nonsense dreams, and pretty much just robbing them blind. Like with these delusional tales of a smart city all on the blockchain. You'll have all the street lights and parking meters and all of these things all on chain, automated, and you'll have the best smart city in the world. And it seems like, you know, since I last talked to him maybe 6-7 months ago, it's still moving full steam ahead, robbing them blind.
Kind of sucks because they actually seem to really want to just get it done. You know?
Yeah, I don't know why everyone is getting so excited over what is essentially a linked list. I mean, when in history, right? So a linked list is just a concept from computer science where, you know, you create a data array, okay, in like a linear structure like this. And really the only difference between a linked list and a blockchain is the fact that the blockchain as we know it from Bitcoin's history has proof of work attached to it, right? And it has some, you know, interesting properties with the public key infrastructure and so on. And that, sure, that allows for the, you know, for the ostensible transfer of ownership from one public key to another in an immutable or a very tamper resistant, you know, linked list that is part of the, you know, the public, you know, part of the commons really. But why though? Why do you want to start putting medical records on it? Like, why is everyone getting so excited over such a dry concept from computer science, which I believe dates back to the 60s, right? It's a really, really basic concept, because you have to do it, you know, when you're dealing with certain types of memory, right? You don't have a choice. Like in RAM, you have to store the array. You have to store the data array in a certain way. So I don't know why everyone suddenly finds this topic so sexy, as opposed to, let's say, data proliferation, another concept like hard drives. Why aren't hard drives sexy? Why isn't it? What's your hard drive strategy?
Because I think it's actually related to blockchain as kind of a representative symbol of freedom. And people are like, hey, let's just blockchain all the things because it's like representative of like freedom.
Right. Whereas a RAID array isn't representative of freedom. That's what you're saying. Like, I'm not going to get more freedom with RAID 6 over RAID 5, am I? What's my RAID 6 strategy?
I mean, I think there's a underpinning in society that kind of like has an answer to that question. You know, there's roots to maybe distrust of your own personal computer and computing hardware. And I think that runs deep.
Grow on trees.
Yeah, do Merkles grow on trees, Janine says. And SQL is hot, says Andrew Morton. Yeah, I can't wait for SQL chain, says Fubar Gorch. And why is hard drive no sexy, asks James Bond. Well, how do you make your drive hard, James? How do you make your drive hard? Yeah, you go. Yeah, RAID 10 gives you even more freedom. That is true. You get the and the parity. Yeah, bang, done it. And sorry, that joke was by Shani. She said it when I was off the mic. I can't claim credit for that one. How do you get your drive hard? All right. So yeah, enough for the fake news. I want to go over some of the comments in the chat because we had some good ones. Let me scroll back here. So Paula, you made a really good point about chaos actually being a feature of the governance. Actually, to quote Paula precisely, governance chaos is a feature, not a bug. And I think that is a good point. I'm not sure that chaos is the word that I would use. I think anarchy is a better word. I think chaos tends to come from nature, like it's just this sort of, you know, big sort of mess where there are no sort of patterns, whereas anarchy is kind of organized kind of chaos. And you're right, it should be something that we allow for, we plan for, and it should be embraced. Whereas I feel like a lot of people kind of react where they say, well, it's toxic. And it's like, well, really all you're doing is you're just giving me your opinion and your feeling like this. You're just telling me how you're feeling. You're not really giving me anything kind of solid. You know, in terms, like, basically you're just telling me that you don't like this discussion, rather than actually embracing this as part of, like, if you chose to fork this chain, you chose to put this in place, you're just going to have to face, you know, the reaction of people and actually see all this discussion and discourse as part and parcel of contentious improvement proposals in the future, rather than some kind of anomaly or something, some irritant that we don't really want.
Well, I think that's what she might mean by governance chaos, is that if, like, because if they're saying that they don't want any discussion, they're saying that they want to be the decision makers. They don't want anyone else to be contributing to the decisions. And when you have everyone, when everyone has the ability to, you know, contribute to the decision making, that is a bit chaotic, but you get, you know, emergent, you know, properties out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be inclusive. Like, a model that doesn't include is a broken model, right? And if you don't include all the voices, even the ones that may be #toxic, Shinobi, then you're not really inclusive of the whole community. Huh? He loves it when I call him toxic. So Blake Anderson says he's going to take 1 million solid state drives and make a giant zero raid for coitus simulation. Good for you, Blake. Yeah, good. That'll be one hell of a coitus there on RAID 0. You get that many RAID 0s. And put them on, what was that? Sun Microsystems created that Zeta file system, the Zeta file system. Do you remember that one? Where you could just plug in a whole bunch of drives of different volumes and different sizes, and it would all just like build this, you know, big chain of state and give you all the parity of RAID 5 and so on. And it was all based in the file system. And I think GFS, Google File System, does something very similar. But yeah, we could get sexy about data persistence and storage. You know, Alcube says, I want to see Charlene. Well, unfortunately, Charlene has worked very, very hard at keeping her image off of the internet, and she would be appalled if I were to get her to go on camera. So not for now, unfortunately. You can only hear her voice. All right, yes, she is an OPSEC pro, Rick. She is. She's very good at it.
Pro.
All right.
Good job.
Final thoughts then of the day, people. Come on.
Let's just keep raising Bitcoin.
Let's keep going.
I feel like I got oh no.
What do you got? What do you got? Damn it. All right. Just going through the chat. Anyone else? Rick, come on.
I was just gonna say, let's go Bitcoin, man. Like, I know we've been bouncing around 5 for a while. Let's just boom through that, man. Let's go. I'm ready.
Good. All right, guys. Yeah, Agnex.
I was like, let's just troll up the price a little bit more. Let's get that 5,000. Like, we're so close.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Bitcoin didn't quite. Putin smacked it down. Didn't quite get to 5,000.
Got the dip.
Yeah, exactly. He took some profit right before that statement. And I'm being told to go to my DMs now. Let's see what I've got waiting for me on the Twitter.
The pug trying to grab a ball.
Oh, the pug. Yeah, okay. I've got to show you this image. Where is it? Here we go. I'm going to pull it up for you in the screen share. Here you go. Here's Bitcoin getting to 5,000. Look, he can't quite reach. No. What I want to know, though, is where do all these gifts come from? Look, he's nearly got it. He's nearly got 5,000. Oh, not quite. Oh, just slips out of his reach right there. And there you have it. Right, guys, this conversation never stops. What you're seeing here on Block Digest is just a snippet, a little glimpse of what really goes on behind the scenes in the Dragon's Den, or the Bitcoin Mumble, as we like to call it. So you are welcome to join us, and you can click on the link below. You can download and install Mumble. It's free open source chat software. You can be with us all day long and debate various Bitcoin and crypto related topics. If you enjoyed today's show, you can click the like and subscribe button, but remember, only if you want to. Bye for now.